Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much. My name is Peter Nwosu, and I'm Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs at this august institution. We gather this afternoon to continue our celebration of the inauguration of our fourth president, Dr. Ronald A. Johnson. And the storied nature of this institution, as you saw in the prior presentation from Dr. Motosho Black. For many of us, when you look at the university's motto, inscribed in that motto are three words: culture for service. Those words inform this presidential symposium we're about to have, titled CAU Lifting Every Voice, Partnering and Outreach in Our Community. This particular symposium will explore many of the ways this storied institution is making a difference in our communities and beyond, more than 150 years after its founding. And we've asked an illustrious member of our community, Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, Professor of Business Administration, to join us in moderating this afternoon's session. A few individuals impact the day-to-day management of organizations and institutions in our country, as Dennis Kimbrough has done. He's a tireless educator. He's also a best-selling author on leadership, wealth, and success, and is one of today's business leaders, business speakers, and researchers in the field of management. And he has tons of work to demonstrate his contributions to our community, his contributions to the world of scholarship. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Dr. Kimbrough, who will lead this afternoon's discussion and introduce the panelists. Thank you very much again, and welcome to this afternoon's event.
Well, as always, I bring you greetings from my school, Clark Atlanta University School of Business, consolidation of two esteemed institutions. Atlanta University, the oldest black graduate school in the nation, founded in 1865, and 4 years later, Clark College. Well, we are in for a treat today. As Marion Wright Edelman has said, service is the price you pay for the space that you occupy. And what we have here today are difference makers. Only four things in life you want to do. Number one, you want to make a difference. Number two, you want to make a difference with others who want to make a difference. Number three, you want to make a difference with others making a difference, doing something that makes a difference. But number four, you want to make a difference with others who want to make a difference, doing something that makes a difference at a time when it makes all the difference in the world. And this is the time. Well, let me introduce our panelists, and if you would be so kind to reserve your applause until the final panelist has been introduced. What do they say in business? That those people who succeed are always good at Plan B, and we have a Plan B opportunity today. Dr. Stan Mizuna, who is a full professor of economics and a founding member of YALI, unfortunately has taken ill. And pitch hitting for him is none other than our dean, interim dean of the School of Business, Dr. Edwards Davis. He will be the first panelist, and I will allow him to introduce himself. Seated next to Dr. Davis is Ms. Vita Chandler. She currently serves as the interim director of dual degree engineering program and the principal investigator and director for the Verizon Innovative Learning Program. In this capacity, she works hand in hand with faculty, staff, and student members in implementing programs and initiatives targeting minority males in Atlanta and the surrounding areas. A native of Mississippi, Ms. Chandler received her Bachelor of Science degree from CAU and a Juris Doctorate from the University of Mississippi School of Law. Dr. Dashell Mitchell. She is an assistant professor in the Department of Curriculum Instruction at CAU as well. She earned her EDD and her EDS in educational leadership from CAU. Dr. Dashell Mitchell's research interests include clinical 21st century future educator preparation, creative literary expressions, effective classroom and effective teaching, program and curriculum development, and last but certainly not least, school community business collaboration and partnership development. Dr. Jenny Jones is the Dean and President of the Whitney M. Young School of Social Work at CAU and graduate faculty affiliate at Florida State University. Dr. Jones boasts more than 20 years of professional experience in administration, including higher education, public child welfare service systems, HIV, and AIDS community-based multi-service organizations. Currently, she serves as the chair of the CSWE Commission on Diversity, Social, and Economic Justice. Dr. Shafiq Khan, he was recruited to Clark Atlanta in 2004 as the scientific director for the Center for Cancer Research and Therapeutic Development. And under his leadership, the center has twice become a university center of excellence, and his unwavering determination and commitment has embedded the center in achieving international presence. Dr. Khan is well renowned for leading cutting-edge research here at CAU of prostate cancer in an effort to mitigate the effects of this disease, specifically on black males. And under his leadership and guidance, the center has received nearly $40 million in external research funding. As Executive Director of the Joseph and Evelyn Lowry Institute for Justice and Human Rights, Ms. Cheryl Lowry, well, she shares Joseph and Evelyn's Lowry vision for directly empowering the lives of students and leaders with programming that creates change agents, advocates, drum majors for justice, and leaders who actively work to better our communities locally and abroad. Dr. Moses C. Norman Sr., well, he currently serves as the Dean of the School of Education and tenured Associate Professor of Educational Leadership in the School of Education here at CAU. Dr. Norman has extensive experience in education at both the P through 12 and higher education levels. His experience includes positions as teacher of English, journalism, humanities, English department chair, instructional supervisor for English, social studies, and foreign languages, as well as assistant superintendent for secondary education in Atlanta Public Schools. And certainly, last but not least, Dr. Marita Poole. She is a cultural anthropologist and curator who specializes in race identity formation, gender, sexualities, the anthropology of art, and image-based ethnography. She was responsible for academic engagement at Spelman College Museum of Fine Art. In addition, she served as curatorial fellow for the African Presence in Renaissance Europe and research coordinator for Will to Adorn. Dr. Poole has been the recipient of numerous awards, grants, and fellowships, including a Mellon Curatorial Fellowship. Now, feel free to give all those a hand. Well, I want to set the ground rules. I want to allow each panelist to come here to the podium, share about 2 to 3 minutes of exactly what they do, how they're making a difference, and then we will open it up for Q&A, certainly to the audience. And yes. Okay, all right, well, good. Changing, no need to come to the podium. You can certainly do it right there where you sit. I guess we will lead with you, Dean.
Testing.
And if you would be so kind to just give us a brief bio of what you've done and what you do and share your remarks.
Can you hear me? Well, I've been at Clark Atlanta University for 36 years, so that's enough of a bio. I will do my best to channel my inner Stan Mizuna, who was the director of this program. And what Dr. Wusu didn't say, we always have our motto, I'll find a way or make one. So I'm going to try to make one right now. In 2013, President Obama assembled about 30 African leaders in Washington to talk about what the United States could do to further relationships with people on the continent. And out of that, he established something called the Young African Leaders Initiative. In the first year of that initiative, they brought about 20 young African leaders to the country to pilot a program to see whether or not we can do things around three basic attributes. One was entrepreneurship, another was civic engagement, and a third was social change. And so those people spent about 6 weeks in the United States talking about these three different programs. Then they launched an initiative where they sent out a request for applications throughout the African continent, and 50,000 people applied for 500 positions. 50,000 people. There were several universities, about 20 universities responded, and each university was to host 25 students during that first year. Clark Atlanta, under the direction of Stan Mizuna, won that grant. We brought 25 young African leaders. These were not students. They were between the ages of 25 and 35 to come and study entrepreneurship at Clark Atlanta University. We had young African leaders from 18 different countries in that first year. The program consisted of three major things. They would have some classroom instruction around entrepreneurship, and we took them through the full business planning process to develop a business that was not their own. The second thing is they had to do a community engagement. So each week we went out to do some kind of community engagement. They went to Hosea Feed the Hungry. They went to Trees Atlanta. We handed out water for the 4th of July 10K race. They did something each week that was a community kind of engagement. The third thing they had to do was to visit some kind of corporate or nonprofit entity. So Atlanta embraced them and opened the city. Fortunately, on our team was the mayor's mother. And once you have the mayor's mother, you have the mayor. And so the mayor opened up the city for us. He had an introductory meeting with all of our students. He spent about an hour and a half talking to these young African leaders about public service and what the city does and how the city of Atlanta embraced the African continent. These young African leaders came from countries sometimes that were not the best of friends. But in the 6 weeks that they spent here with us, they bonded into a unit. They formed teams of 5-person teams, and each developed a project that they were going to take back to their home countries. As a part of what we did during that 6 weeks, since we were doing entrepreneurship, they could apply for grants. So we had about 10 of our young African leaders apply for grants from the federal government, and 6 of our people won in the first year, and they each got $25,000 grants to infuse back in their business at home. Now, we were one of 20 institutions including University of California, Berkeley. There were institutions across the country. There were 3 HBCUs, Morgan State University, Howard University, and Clark Atlanta University. Our young African leaders were so impressed with the program and the embrace that this city laid out for them that they posted a lot of stuff on Facebook. And what do you know happened? Clark Atlanta University was the envy of every school in this nation. There were 20 other institutions. They said that we had the best program of any school in this nation. They asked us then to send out our program so that they could mimic our program going forward. The other thing that the young African leaders wanted to do was make sure they had interaction with Americans. So we had a lot of people in the city that hosted these young African leaders for dinners. They took them out. Several people from the faculty here had picnics for these folks. In fact, I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning to take these young African leaders out there to hand out water, and then brought them back to my house for a 4th of July picnic because we were trying to embrace them into the American culture. These young people went back and told everybody about what Clark Atlanta did, and then the next year, everybody wanted to come to Clark Atlanta. We could only host 25 again, so Dr. Mizuna put in a proposal for the second year. Again, we won. The second year was only 2 HBCUs, Howard and Clark Atlanta University, participated. And the program was so successful that President Obama opened it up. Instead of 500 in the third year, he opened it up to 1,000 and opened it up to 40 institutions. Again, Clark Atlanta was one of the successful ones. We hosted it for our third year. And the crowning jewel is that at the end of this 6 weeks, all of these young African leaders met at what was called the Presidential Summit. The first year, Michelle Obama and Barack Obama spoke. The second year, Barack spoke. And then the third year, each school had an opportunity to have a one-on-one with President Obama. And fortunately, Mesfin allowed me to be the person to have that one-on-one. So I had a one-on-one with President Barack Obama.
And you have yet to wash your hands.
I'm still keeping one finger on yours. But it has been a tremendously successful program. And even though you're only able to bring 500 or 1,000 people to the States each year, that program has spread so through the continent of Africa that I think now they have over 40,000 people that are in what is called the Young African Leaders Initiative. So I'm available for questions. I'm not Mesfin Mizuna, but I'll try to answer questions as best I can, and thank you for listening.
Dr. Chandler.
Yes, sir.
How's everything with Verizon and the black males?
My babies are wonderful. Thank you.
And I know they are under capable hands. Tell us what you do.
Yes, sir. Well, my name is Vita Chandler, and I am the director for the Verizon Innovative Learning Program. What that is it's a 2-year pipeline program here at Clark Atlanta University. It is fully funded by the, I'm sorry, I feel so stifled, but the dean told me I'm tethered, so I can't move. It's fully funded by the Verizon Foundation. We are one of 12 institutions now who are running the program. It started in 2015 with Jackson State, North Carolina A&T, Kentucky State, and Morgan State University. The second year of the program, it was expanded to 8 other HBCUs, including Clark Atlanta University. And the goal of the program is to train minority middle school males from the ages of 11 to 13 in 3D printing and app development. So when we were talking about our ideas, what we wanted to do, we wanted to expand it beyond that, because yes, it's important to tackle the tasks, but it's also important to address the student. So we were able to incorporate into that plan a student leadership and development portion, math, STEM, science, and English and literature arts, which was run by Ms. Morgan. I saw her earlier, I think she's gone. So we had a wonderful Verizon staff, a wonderful Verizon team this summer to run the 5-week program. It started in June and we ran for 5 weeks. Normally the programs go from 2 to 5 weeks. We decided 5 weeks. By the 3rd week, we were pulling our hair out. But it was, at the end of the day, it was worth it. So the students were introduced to 3D printing, to app development. They learned basic coding, graphic design. We had a wonderful team, all hands on board. And it was, I call them my babies because they are. So we hosted about 40 middle school males from surrounding communities. Brown Middle School, Price Middle School. We had some from the Ron Clark Academy. We had some from Gwinnett County. So we had a good mix of students in that program. So our first class was this summer. We're continuing activities throughout the year. It's a 2-year pipeline program, but we're hosting activities throughout the year. So we hosted the students at the Clark Atlanta and Morehouse game this past Saturday, where we were victorious. Go CAU Panthers. And we're also hosting them on October 29th for a tech day. That's a student-led and a student-run session where the students are going to have different areas, different tech areas, everything from robotics to 3D printing to they're going to get exposure to the biodiesel lab. So they're going to get about 30 minutes to an hour in about 5 different tech stations. So we're very excited about that. And we're going to continue activities throughout the year and in the spring, and then we're going to get ready for our second summer program, which should be around June or July. So we're very excited about the program. Verizon has been a wonderful source of support. They've traveled here on several occasions and sat in on the classes, and they're very happy with what we're doing. So we're trying to strengthen and build that partnership, hopefully leading to more funding and expansion of the program. So if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. All right.
Dr. Dashell Mitchell, share with us what you are doing, the summer project for Atlanta elementary students.
Yes. Well, we've been diligently engaging our elementary students, kindergarten students through, at this time, rising fourth graders on the campus of Clark Atlanta University. So we began 4 summers ago with 15 children, kindergarten children, and we have always embraced our mission, which is we can find a way or make a way. And so Dr. Felicia Mayfield said, Doc, says we're swimming, classroom spaces, changing, what can we possibly do to get this done in 3 weeks? And you know, we reached out to our partnership school, an independent school, the Davenport School on Cascade Road. And so for the first summer, we had 15 children, we had certified teachers, and we also wonderfully had our Clark Atlanta University School of Education majors who also worked. And so our 15 students came from our neighborhood schools, and we offered the swimming experience for them. We did all we could possibly do to reduce the summer learning loss or prevent it. Now, you know about the summer learning loss that children can certainly experience. And so we moved forward with our literacy block, which was 2 hours, our writing workshop. We also developed project-based learning work. And so for the second year, the summer of 2014, the 6-week program moved onto the campus of Clark Atlanta University. You should hear these 15 students, and then we added 15 more. So when we arrived in the School of Education, there were 30 of us, 30 young people who said, my favorite school is what? Clark Atlanta University. And so we made use of the space. We made certain that we had our literacy block, we had study trips, and we began to develop, of course, an overarching concept, which is the journey. So our young people began to connect their 5 components of reading with their math applications, with study trips. We aligned everything using the standards, of course, and we began to think about our students becoming local citizens and global citizens. How do we impart this concept that that's really what we're about? They're young scholars. We refer to our children as young scholars. Well, fast forward, here we are. We just experienced the 4th summer with 60 students on this campus. And they range from kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd, rising 4th grade students. Now let me tell you this. This program at our university is the only Horizons program that is an HBCU program. The other Horizon Atlanta sites are at Woodward Academy, Georgia Tech, Georgia State, Kennesaw University, Holy Innocents, and the like. So we, of course, have our brand, and our students are wonderfully entertaining and asking key questions. They are working with real issues, real social issues. And so we travel vicariously around the world. First, we get a clear understanding of what it means to be a citizen. Then we get an understanding of what it means to be a global citizen. And with that, our children with passports in their hand, we vicariously experience going from North America, examining land formations, food choices, food disparities. We look at all other major issues, transportation and the like. And so we started home with Georgia. We compare and contrast. This summer we dealt with Georgia and Louisiana. So we deal with the foods, the culture and all. Then we went to Africa. And in Africa, we of course dealt with South Africa and Madagascar. We understood how Madagascar is bleeding. If you look at it from the Google Docs, you can see the rivers are turning red because of the nutrients in the soil has been depleted. you know. And so we went from there to Europe. In Europe, we went to Greece and the Netherlands this year. And South America, we were in Brazil and we were in Colombia. So our children are asking key questions. They are not only asking questions, they're doing the research, they're examining, investigating, and they're doing something. So you have to come up with a project-based learning work. So of course, we have African bag gardens as an alternative to get the nutrients that we need. We create wall gardens, we create box gardens, and we're even dealing with hydroponics. And we also have many concepts that underride the overarching one, such as money matters, how to develop a business plan, healthy bodies, healthy minds, the health and nutrition piece. We have dealt with who am I, who are we, as we identify our relationships, and in particular, how do we connect to our great university. We have even wonderfully, as of 2 summers ago, had the young African leaders to come in and talk with us as expert presenters, talk with our students. And they were asked, you know, all about the types of soil. You know, there are 3 types of soil. And they want to know, well, what type of vegetation, what type of plants? And so it's that ongoing research and investigation. Meanwhile, our students are evidencing growth in terms of their reading fluency, reading comprehension, and their math. So this is the thought of Horizons. Horizons National began 50 years ago, and out of Connecticut, and they said, we can do something. Dr. King is saying we could do some things for our children in the inner cities here at our independent schools. And so each of the sites here in Atlanta, we are a bit different, but then we're alike. We have very high expectations of our students, our scholars. We also have established traditions. We have the family setting for breakfast and lunch. We have ongoing dialogue. We have a passport ceremony. And so it's an ongoing intrinsic piece. So at the end, during our gala of evidence, our students can talk about, yes, I am a swimmer. I know about having confidence and grit. And they evidence that by their wares, their products, things that they've created, but mostly the conversation that you would have with the Horizons, Clark Atlanta University Young Scholar, kindergarten through 5th grade.
Dr. Poole, we waited a while for you. You are doing great things. Tell us about the CAU Museum.
Well, Clark Atlanta University, can you hear me? Clark Atlanta University is the steward of one of the foremost collections of African American modern art. So I have the pleasure and the privilege to protect that collection and make it known to the world. As an example of that, we were all very enthused this past few weeks about the Smithsonian Museum, National Museum of African American History and Culture, and I was responsible for sending one of our works, our Henry Ossawa Tanner, to the museum to be exhibited at the opening. Now this piece, this painting that I sent is one of the foremost works ever created by Henry Ossawa Tanner, and it's rarely been seen. So a lot of what I do is find ways to protect the collection that was started here in the 1940s, but equally, I try to find ways to allow the community and the campus at large to appreciate what we have in our possession. Now, I do this in a couple of ways. The first is that I develop exhibitions from our permanent collection, such as the one that will be opening this Sunday, titled Bittersweet, which deals with works from the 1940s to the contemporary period that highlight both the sadness, the pains, the struggles that we've experienced in our communities, but also the joy, the pleasure, the happiness, the ways that artists of African descent have represented the full gamut of our experience. So I hope that you will come out for that. A second thing that I do is I develop programs such as the Artists and Collectors series, where we teach visual literacy by bringing contemporary artists and collectors to the museum to talk to the community about their collections and the works that they do so that people can understand and have a way to engage African American fine art. The third thing that I do is I develop exhibitions of contemporary artists of African descent that can be in communication with our historic collection. So right now, we have in the museum the foremost Egyptian Nubian artist in the world creating an on-site wall drawing. And he also will have a show that opens this weekend, October 9th, from 3 to 5 p.m. And the exhibition is titled Fatih Hassan, Edge of Memory. So what I would like to say, just to keep it brief and so I can open this up to the audience, is I welcome the chance for all of you all to see our activities online on our Facebook page, on Instagram, and our social media sites. But most of all, I hope that you will walk over to Trevor Arnett Hall to the second floor and come to see what we have in our possession for you to view. Thank you.
Well, now those in attendance know what I have known for a while. We are here with game changers and high achievers. And Dean, this is what I do outside the classroom. I go around and interview those folks who are making things happen. So I have a bevy of questions. Now here we are in the presidential race, and we cut on the TV, and there we got presidential candidates and pundits trying to go ahead and give us the keys to the kingdom. They got all the answers. But here are 8 individuals who are making things happen. So my first question is, specifically, what should our community be doing in your particular area? How can we heighten awareness, all right? How can we take what you're doing here at Clark Atlanta, what you're doing in the Atlanta area, and in some cases throughout the Southeast and nationally, but really turn the volume level up? If we really want to get far out and sexy, we're dealing with a bunch of millennials out here. What should millennials be doing? How can they make a difference? How can they go ahead and grab hold of the baton of what you're doing? Because service is all about collaboration. So I got a host of questions. Who wants to throw the first punch? Go ahead.
I will. The wonderful opportunity to work with our children during summer months is certainly always available through Horizons Clark Atlanta University. We seek volunteers. We seek those with expertise in rather different areas to come in an organized fashion and interact with us. The actual cost of our children being on campus is only $20 registration fee. And if you'd like to also seek ways to make certain that a child's seat is reserved, I know innovatively you could do that. But we are very serious about our engagement with our neighborhood schools, and many of them have already been mentioned. And we wish to follow our students during the fall and the winter. But during the summer, coming on campus and hearing your story, for instance, we've had entrepreneurs to come and talk about the business plan. What is it that you wish to do? When we talk about money and money matters to young children, and how do you save, why do you save, invest, and we just go through all of that with them, and they develop a plan. So wonderful to hear Keon say, well, my father and I are cutting grass in the summer, and I can save, and I do save my money, a part of my money to do things that I wish to do, but I also save and I also invest. So to have our young people to have the language and a sense of empowerment as a local citizen, even as a child, they're able to do that. So I would say to millennials and to all of us in attendance to find a wonderful space like the Horizons Clark Atlanta University program, and there is an application, and you have to check certain things, of course, but you're welcome to do that. We are very data-driven. It's important that we have pre-assessments. We conduct pre-assessments with our children academically. We provide benchmark data, and we also highly regard their growth. And there is growth within 6 weeks. And so the places that we choose to visit, we talk about you're a global citizen. So with their passport, we've gone to the Delta Museum. We have gone to the International Airport. We travel throughout the city. That broadens our children's horizons. Perhaps you have a business or an interest, a place where young people can come and hear your story. And during our, I'll be quick, and during our breakfast and our lunchtime as a family unit, we talk about what we've learned, and we review that, and we apply that. We impart the vocabulary. We talk about strategies to move forward with young people, and believe you me, we ask for solutions, and they're able to come up with some solutions.
Dr. Khan, we can't even get black males to go to the doctor. How can we help you?
Well, I think that's what I want to talk about. There are two things I want to touch, and one thing is people like your generation. And you know, we go in the community and we complain that the uneducated people or poor people, they don't take care of themselves. But I hosted a session here on the campus for the administrators. And Dr. Brown, the ex-president, was in the audience, so I asked him point blank, have you been screened for prostate cancer? And he said no. And I think that is one of the things, but we have to do it ourselves so that we can tell other people to do the same thing. The second thing is that most of the unhealthy behaviors are developed in the young age, and they're manifested when you're 40 or 50 years of age. So we teach young students here in the age where they learn good habits. But we have nothing about the general health in our general education, and I had pointed that out for a few years, and I think it should be part of our curriculum.
Dr. Jones?
I want to go back to when you started the question, when you posed the question around, phrased the question around the fact that this is a voting year and voting is coming up soon. I want to encourage all young people, the millennials, to use your social media to organize your friends and yourself around voting. Rock the vote. We must rock the vote, because that's critical. That's very important for us moving forward. And social media is a powerful tool. And if you use it right here in the AU Center, if you just organize yourselves around here in the AU Center to make sure that you and your friends get out to vote, that will have a huge, huge impact on all of us as we move forward. I also want to say, another thing that I think you should really invest your time in is understanding social justice and injustices, and organizing yourself in a way to make a change around that. When I listen to Dr. Lowry talk about the center she's heading up, that our parents, furthering the work of our parents, all of you should be visiting that center to understand what that work stood for and how to carry it on. Social justice is a huge part of what we do in social work education. It's another core value that we hold and that we instill in our students, because we have to understand the importance of trying to move ourselves beyond the injustices that occur in this country. So I challenge each of you, organize your friends, use your social media, your Twitter, your Facebook, your Snapchat, the list goes on and on and on. You know what they are. Organize your friends, get out to vote, understand the importance of social justice, and make a change around the injustices that we all seek today.
Absolutely. The vote is so important, and you can't take that for granted. I think also when you talk about how do you inspire millennials, you have to allow millennials to be a part of the discussion and to help determine what's relevant. So one of the things that we're doing October the 16th or 26th, I'm sorry, I'm not sure, but it's Atlanta Public Schools has a Joseph Lowry lecture series. And so this year, on civic engagement, and so this year the change agents have helped us determine what the topic is. And so Clark Atlanta University's debate team will debate Morehouse debate team. And this is in front of high school seniors. And the topic is one that the millennials seem to be struggling with during this election year. And the topic is something like this. When there are two candidates that you are not particularly excited about, is it within your DNA to say that I must vote for one of them? And I could answer that pretty quickly, but the millennials can't. And so that debate will be an opportunity for them to really kind of look at, because they're just seemingly not very excited about either candidate, and they're struggling with the fact that they may not vote. And for me, that's, you know, blasphemy to even consider. So I think that giving them the opportunity to discuss that and to try and wiggle that out might hopefully help them come to terms with what their ancestry ought to tell them.
And may I just add to that? I don't want this to turn into a voting situation.
Why not?
But also, I think in terms of the ballot, so many times we show up in the voter location to do our vote, and we haven't studied the ballot, and so there are initiatives on the ballot we don't know what they mean. Go to the library. You can study it in advance before it's even out there. Get the information, because I think one of the biggest challenges that we have as people of color is that we make decisions without having all the information. Get
Absolutely.
the information.
And vote absenteeism, you know,
Yeah.
vote early and go ahead and do your absentee voting, sorry.
I want to do a little social research. How many people in the audience have children in P-12 schools of any sort? Okay, I do that because only about 48% of the people in a community usually have children in our schools. Only about 48%. Now, that differs in some communities, but as a general rule, only about 48% of the people who live in a community have children in school, which might well mean that they know very little about what's happening in these schools, except what they pick up off the sound bites on news and things of that nature. When somebody kills somebody or when somebody does something else. So what I used to do with my students here at the university is give them an assignment and say, look around your community and identify the indicators that that community takes education seriously. Because we lost that battle, we won that battle in Kalamazoo, Michigan, when we decided that public schools would be funded in the interest of the public good. Because prior to that, people said, we're not responsible for educating your children beyond what we call a common school, which was elementary school. So what we're saying here is now that on the ballot in Georgia, we're back to the voting now. We have Amendment 1. And Amendment 1 asks the question. It's a reasonable question. Do you agree that the governor of the state of Georgia should have the authority, once schools that have a history of non-performing based on our indicators of performance, that he should have the authority to intervene in those schools by appointing a superintendent for that 126 schools in the state? There are 126 of them. They say right now they're in trouble, many of which are located in the Atlanta metro area. And so I say here, who cares whether the governor takes over the schools or not?
I do.
I mean, who out there in the public cares? What does that mean? Now, here's the deal. You cannot ask a single parent, would you like to keep sending your children to schools that don't perform? And the answer is no. So I want us to use this, I'll call it a threat. Now let me just give you the information you didn't ask for. When I worked for the Atlanta public school system for all those years, we closed 57 schools. We closed 57 schools because in 1967 we had 113,000 students, and I think we have about 50,000 now. So we closed 57 schools. And this is an experience that I had. Every time we went into a community to talk about closing a school, the parents said, we need this school. This school means something to our community. So where were you when you were not helping the children and their parents gain a mindset that education is important enough for you to put emphasis on it? So I would suggest to us, just as Dr. Kostoffin is doing in the Atlanta Public School System, is try to get ahead of the game by saying, we will put in some reforms so that we can convince the public that we're serious about our schools and you don't have to take them over because we can do it ourselves.
Exactly.
I want us to start thinking that. We sent off a football team last night of 95 men to go to Rome, Georgia, to participate in a football game. That's about 1/4 of all of the male students at Clark Atlanta University, undergraduates. Now, the birth rate in America is roughly 50-50 between male and female. But our enrollment at all of the colleges and universities that we call HBCUs, other than Bennett College, Spelman, and Morehouse, is about 76% female and 24% male right now. So I'm asking us, if we commiserate about we don't want the governor to take over the schools, why don't we take them over ourselves?
That's right. That's
And do
right.
something in that regard.
That's right.
Well, Dr. Chandler, I know you have a head full of answers because you're dealing with black men.
Well,
In a county that only graduates at best 5 out of every 10 black males from high school.
yes, yes.
What are the answers?
Well, I'm going to keep it very simple, and this is something that I talk to my students about every day in the dual degree engineering program, and also these young men that we've been entrusted with. It's you need to use your voice. You need to find your voice, you need to use your voice, and then more importantly, you need to be able to defend your voice. You need to be able to give the reasons why you stand for something. You don't have to shy away like a little church mouse. A very near and dear friend to me, he is a very successful businessman, but he started off as he always says, a little rotten-toothed kid in Flint, Michigan, who ran his way out of Flint. But he would always say, find your space at the table. Find a seat at the table, because chances are if you're not sitting at the table, you're on the menu. So that is something that I try to impart to these students and to these young men. It was interesting because they had a debate during their student leadership. Now, these are 11 and 12-year-olds. They had a debate during their student development, their student leadership session. And we were talking about the election. And we had one young man who was supporting a particular candidate. No one understood why. And so they were hammering him. They were drilling him. They were, how could you possibly support this candidate? But he stood tall, he stood firm. None of us agreed with his reasoning. But he stood tall and he stood firm, and he was able to defend his voice. So I tell them at the end of the day, I'm so proud of you for being able to defend your voice. You found your voice, you have no problem speaking, and now you're defending it. So for the students, for the millennials, don't shy away from the fight. Don't shy away from the problem. You don't have to get in throwing both paws. You don't have to use your paws. You don't have to use your hands. You can find other ways to use your voice. But it's important that you do find that voice and you do use that voice.
Dean, I'm going to flip the script on you. I know you're dealing with Yali, young African leaders, blah, blah, blah. Do we need a U.S. Black America version of Yali?
Well, let me answer it this way. Dr. Black was very entertaining. I enjoyed so much his readings. But then he said something to the students, and I wonder how many students embraced what he said. He said he came here for excellence, and that we had very high standards.
You sure do.
Now, as I look at Clark Atlanta today, I ask the students, did you come here for excellence? Do you appreciate when a faculty holds you responsible for turning in work on Monday and not accepting it on Tuesday? Or do you go back and say, why can't you accept it on Tuesday? I think we do need something that will increase in our young people the same kind of fire and vision that Dr. Black had when he came to Clark Atlanta, that he really was coming here and people were holding him responsible for excellence. I don't know that we're holding people responsible for excellence anymore. And if we don't hold them responsible for excellence, how will we achieve any excellence? We really have to do something to make sure that the Clark Atlanta University in 2050 is the same Clark College that Dr. Black came to in the 19 whatever. Remember, he didn't write those 6 books when he came out of Arkansas. He wrote those 6 books because something inspired him here. And we have to light that same kind of inspiration amongst our students. I'm going to send out a challenge to the students, and I want you to take this back to all of your classmates. Each one of you should identify 3 students who are in high school that you can recommend to our enrollment management people to come and get the same kind of education that you're experiencing. Each one of you. And if you don't do that, you have not done your duty. You've come here to soak up the education, but you're not fostering it with the rest of our community. So I'm challenging you to go back and tell each one of your classmates to make sure you recommend 3 students to come to Clark Atlanta. Will you accept that challenge?
They'll do it.
Will you accept that challenge? Will you accept that challenge? Yes. Thank you.
Well, for the sake of time, I got my official scorekeeper right here, 2 minutes, and as the provost comes up here, I'm gonna allow you to close us out. Come on up here, Mr. Provost. From Yali to Trio, from Verizon to Horizon, I am honored to stand here and serve as your moderator. Speaking of excellence, Dean, to your left, these are game changers. These are men and women doing things in our community. These are folks who are certainly trying to provide the answer. There are 50 million challenges and problems and circumstances that we as people of color, specifically African Americans, face on a daily basis. But here are folks making things happen. So again, let's close out and give them another round of applause. And Mr. Provost, thank you for the honor of serving as your moderator.
Thank you. Let's give Dr. Dennis Kimbrough a round of applause. One more shout out to our panel members. Thank you so much for excellent work in the community. Please give them a round of applause. And we will pause for a few minutes and then set up for a final session this afternoon, which you would really come to enjoy because it involves individuals who went through the halls of this institution, graduated and moved on to become presidents of their own institutions. And so I ask you to stay behind. We'll have a musical selection shortly, and that panel will wind down the day's event for us, and then we'll reconvene tomorrow. And so, Dean Taylor, are we ready for? Yes, they will step out of the, yes. Thank you very much again.